Tracy and Hamish, it's nice to see you both. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chris. Good morning, Tracy. How are you both?
Not bad for
Very well.
Friday. Not bad for Friday. Listen, let's get into this. We'll discuss the Christchurch Erebus announcement first. Tracy, to you on this. It did and does look like a lovely place. It's going to be at, of course, Craycroft Reserve there on the Christchurch Port Hills. Not everyone, of course, is going to be happy about this, but when I saw this, I thought it was it's a peaceful place. It's a nice place. What do you think?
I agree with you. I think it is a lovely place, and it's been such a long time. It's been a long-awaited memorial for families, and I just hope that it does bring some relief. I know that the ministry and the council and the families have been working together on this for a long time. So it's a genuine offer. It's a beautiful place, and we hope it works out well.
Hamish, what was your reaction when you saw the news on this yesterday?
Yes, look, I think kind of it's important to acknowledge that actually today is the 46th anniversary of the Erebus tragedy, and of course there was 257 lives lost on that day, and there's a lot of loved ones of those people that are still feeling their loss very, very keenly. So I just did want to acknowledge the memories of the loved ones of those 257 victims of the Erebus disaster. And so it is quite apt that we're talking about it today on the anniversary. Look, I appreciate there's probably going to be mixed views amongst the families about where the memorial should be. Look, I think it is a beautiful spot here in Christchurch. We have a strong connection to the Antarctic, and actually just recently we had the Antarctic season opening here in New Zealand, which we celebrate our scientific endeavours down there. So we do have a close link. I think Christchurch does have some peaceful spots, and I think it is a peaceful spot. Appreciate there was challenges in Auckland. I think they looked at 50 different sites to have it in Auckland. So look, I think it's great that we can have that memory here in Christchurch. Appreciate families around the country might.
It'll be interesting to see exactly what they decide, whether it's some kind of plaque they put up there or something. But I think it's a nice gesture. But interesting, I saw in the press release yesterday, it's not out of the woods yet. It could change again. And I think the other option was on the banks of the Avon River here in Christchurch, which, not a bad idea. I do need to move on. The government, of course, it wants to get rid of ECAN councillors, in fact, regional councillors all across New Zealand. Tracy, this seems to have caught the likes of Dion Swiggs by surprise. They weren't expecting this announcement so soon. David Seymour last week on this program said there won't be any announcements till after Christmas, which I thought was interesting when you look at what's happened now. What are your views on this?
Yeah, it did come somewhat out of the blue, but it wasn't a total surprise.
Yeah.
And we caught up with the ECAN councillors a couple of days ago, and it's fair to say that I won't speak on their behalf, but they're clearly reeling from this news. And look, the government, Christopher Luxon campaigned on more say for local communities, and here he's doing the exact opposite. So you can't blame people for feeling a little bit discombobulated about what on earth is going on. And, communities rely on ECAN to provide them with a say on public transport, on environmental protections, and the things that really matter to them. So, I think replacing councillors with ministers or appointed commissioners just shifts that power further away from people. And I feel really quite concerned about it.
Tracy, when I heard, though, the number of authorities across New Zealand, I can't remember the total figure, but I was quite shocked. And then, of course, when I was watching, I think it was One News the other day, they had a breakdown of the maps of just how many authorities we have here right across even just Canterbury alone in the South Island. I was actually gobsmacked. I mean, it is a hell of a lot, though. Do you think the government is right on one hand to suggest there is far too much duplication, there's far too much bureaucracy for our country, though? Because that's what it comes down to, doesn't it?
And I think, to be really sensible about it, we're not adverse to the concept of simplifying local councils. And I think you're right. And I think that there does need, to be a bit of a rethink potentially. But it's, at the centre of this, you've got to make sure that those environmental considerations and most importantly, that the public feel and do have a say is the heart of democracy. So it's all very well to want to simplify things, which I think we can all agree on, but it's about how you go about it. And this announcement doesn't seem like it was very consultative. When it takes everybody by surprise, particularly the people that it most concerns, then you've probably got a bit of an idea that it's not ideal.
Hamish, of course, the government now says it's going out for consultation to understand what the public thinks, but this is just performative, isn't it? At the end of the day, if they want to do something, they'll do it. In fact, if they're so concerned about the cost of things, why not just do it anyway?
Look, Chris, and I just want to kind of correct some of the things Tracy has said. She obviously hasn't really looked at the policy that closely. It's not replacing the councillors with ministers or with commissioners.
It's with mayors,
about
isn't
actually it? Putting a board of the mayors of the areas.
Initially.
But they could put in commissioners. So there's part of the plan, though.
Look, I think kind of let's be clear. There's a huge amount of fragmentation between our local bodies. You look at public transport, which of course Tracy mentioned. ECAN control the buses, yet the council controls where the bus stops are, where the buses should stop, and things like that. And that, of course, leads to huge kind of disputes in the public transport space about where buses should run. It's not removing local democracy. Of course, we have local body elections, and once again, now the board of mayors would be overseeing it. So there is that accountability. And I would actually challenge. A lot of people don't actually know who the chair of ECAN is. A lot of people don't know who the ECAN councillor is. And when you come to
local government is.
Let me finish, Tracy. When it comes to local body elections, of course, we have very poor turnout. And I think one of the main problems is you see a form which just has multiple layers. You have mayor, you have councillors, then you get to ECAN. And I think by the time people get to ECAN, they're confused, and hence they don't participate in that democracy. So I think kind of simplifying it actually means that local voice will be amplified and people are going to be engaged more.
Having said that, though, Hamish, I mean, you look at the voting record for the chair and some of the other ECAN councillors, thousands ahead of even local government elections, as in sort of Christchurch City Council. There are far more people who voted actually for, maybe it's because of population base, to be fair, for Environment Canterbury councillors.
Yeah, the bigger areas. So, but yeah, look, I take that point. But the thing is, we actually, by simplifying it, I think we're going to get better engagement across local body, and that's really what we want. Better local representation. Of course, remove that fragmentation. Public transport is just one area that's fragmented. When you come to look at kind of district plans, kind of housing intensification, land use,
okay.
There is both parties kind of really having a say on some of these issues.
Hamish, you're not on Mars by any chance, are you? Just because your camera's looking a little bit shaky as if you're recording on a potato, but we will continue and maybe it'll come right. That's okay. I can still see you smiling, which is good. Tracy, want to move on to interesting Finance Minister Nicola Willis said to me on this program just 2 days ago that there will be an announcement on capping rates before Christmas. She calls this an early Christmas present. What are you saying?
Well, look, Christopher Luxon
that was interesting.
Blaming others for the cost of living, which he's only made worse rather than better. And instead of doing something about it, they're just going to push some of the tough decisions onto the local communities and the local councils. So, ultimately money has to come from somewhere. And there's, people rely on a lot of the services that local councils provide. And, does that increase fees? Does it cut services? If you, arbitrarily just put a cap on rates, then something's got to give. And we've had a long history in this country of local councils campaigning on 0% rates increases and then deferring all that maintenance. Then that comes home and bites you on the proverbial at some point when you have got to catch up on all that maintenance. So I think this is just another example of this national government and Christopher Luxon pushing the buck onto someone else.
Hamish, is this announcement that's pending going to be more of a sugar hit rush just before Christmas? What do you say?
Look, the thing is, if we look, and I appreciate the Labour Party loves a bit of inflation, but if we look at the council rates, they've increased between 7% and 12% year on year. But that's 2.5 times the rate of general inflation. So the thing is, it's not just focusing on costs. But the thing is, when we look at here in the Ireland electorate, you look at the Harewood Road cycleway. It's a prime example. The council's already spent $5 million on it. I don't know one local that actually wants it, and that was going to.
And keeping in mind, sorry to interrupt, Hamish. And keeping in mind, nothing's been built though, right? They've done $5 million, but nothing's been built. So that's
wasted. So yes, right. We want the government to focus on the maintenance, which Tracy has spoken about, but not on some of these projects that actually local residents don't want. And the only thing they're going to achieve is drive up rates, which add to the cost of living crisis. Bearing in mind, under the last Labour government, the cumulative effects of inflation was an increase of prices by 25%. So that is what the baseline we're dealing with.
Tracy, did you want to respond?
Well, I would challenge Hamish to provide some more information about how much a cycleway adds to the rates bill, because councils do a huge amount of activity, and from my knowledge, a single cycleway, it's all very well to focus on cycleways, but that's the very least of what they do. Keeping the pipes up to date, keeping all of the services and functions, swimming pools, libraries, all of that stuff, it does cost money. And look, you're always going to find some authorities around, or some councils around the country, that could tighten their belt a little bit. But I think we're using that as an excuse to impose a rates cap, so that this government can say that they're somehow doing something about the cost of living, instead of actually doing anything with all of the levers that they've got available to them for the cost of living and for people's budgets.
Just want to move.
We've got interest rates down, so that's saving $330 a fortnight on the average mortgage. There's a whole range of issues. This is actually about making sure that the councils focus on things that actually matter, the core basics.
Interesting how the banks are very slow to move after the OCR announcement, isn't it? They're just thinking about their lives, looking in the clouds. Maybe we'll change the interest rates. I want to move on just briefly. ChrisLynchMedia.com reported that terrible youth crime wave right across Christchurch last Sunday. Police haven't caught all the offenders. They're filming themselves on TikTok again. Look, they will be the same ones that police know about, no doubt. And as I was speaking to the Canterbury police boss, he said it's always just a small cohort of recidivist offenders, which is true. But having said that, the number of, or the amount of damage they do on local businesses can't be understated. Even just down the road from where I live, there was a ram raid and significant damage. So what are we going to do about these kids? Because they feel like they can get away with it. In fact, in the media release, it said the kids knew that police couldn't chase them, so they continued their rampage right across Christchurch. Hamish, to you first, just quickly.
Yeah, look, this is very disconcerting news that's come out. Look, we have taken a tough on crime approach. There's been 38,000 less victims of violent crime. Ram raids on a whole are down 85%.
But what do we do about what do we do about these? I know, I mean, there are some good stats. Don't get me wrong. But what do we do about these kids? There's only about 3 or 4 of them, but they are causing nuisance, and they know they can get away with it. So what are we going to do to try and change their trajectory so they don't end up in Peperoa prison one day?
So we have introduced a special category, so a serious youth offender, to actually give police more powers to actually deal with this situation. We saw a huge spike in youth crime, an increase of over 21% under the last government. We have started to get that to come down, but there's still a group of hardcore youth offenders that still cause trouble. And look, this has a huge impact on business owners. I spoken to one of the business owners in my electorate who was affected. This has a huge impact on some of these small businesses that's trying to make a living. So yes, I think we need to crack down harder. We need to make sure we've got stronger sentencing. We're increasing the beat police by over 100%, the number of patrols. So all these measures, but we still have some hardcore cases that we're going to need to deal with.
Tracy, what do you think?
It is, and it's look, it's tragic. Everybody deserves to feel safe, and businesses deserve to feel safe, including their workers when they turn up to work. We introduced the circuit breaker, which I think had something like a 76% success rate. And it's good to see that this government carried that on, because it works. When something's working well, you do hope that the incoming government picks that ball up and runs with it. And so we want to make sure that those programs continue to be well resourced, because there's been so many cuts into several of the things that actually target the drivers of
I
crime.
don't think more
And
places are cut.
ultimately, poverty, addiction, homelessness, family instability, people under pressure, it manifests somewhere. And so, it's incumbent upon any good government to address those drivers of crime.
Just finally, Tracy, you're at a Labour Party conference. Any tidbits, anything exclusive, any sort of what can we expect, any amazing policy announcements? Or you singing a song, you doing a solo? What's happening, just briefly?
There'll always be a song of good waiata. We're just starting, actually, Chris. It's in Auckland. It's a beautiful day, and there's hundreds and hundreds of people here for conference, and we're all very excited and getting organised for an excellent election next year to make this a one-term government.
It's a nice looking location there at one of those boat clubs. It looked familiar. Hamish, just briefly to you, busy weekend, just quickly.
Yes, there's a number of events going on in Christchurch. Of course, it's a great place to be, far better than Auckland. We've got Christmas in the Park on Saturday night. And there's a number of cultural events happening throughout the weekend. And of course, looking to get to Park Run tomorrow morning.
Oh, I'll give that a miss. Tracy and Hamish, thank you so much for your time this morning. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Excellent.
Enjoy your weekends.
Good to see you both. Excellent.